The Royal Rumble is just days away with several big matches booked besides the Royal Rumble match itself. How will the WWE further push the pay-per-view on the 20th January edition of Raw? Join us now as Wrestlelamia analyzes Raw and looks at the wildest news stories and rumors you need to know, including an ex-WWE writer discussing bullying in the company, news on WWE returns, PSICOSIS 2 explains why he pimp-slapped Conan, and Vince receives huge backlash over a tweet. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos. But first, let's look at Raw and the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. First, let's look at the good as number 1, the war escalates. Seth Rollins may have the AOP and his new disciple Buddy Murphy, but Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe aren't letting the Big Show's absence keep them from fighting Rollins and his disciples. The WWE did a good job bringing the Big Show back to pop the audience with a surprise return and help put the Monday Night Messiah and his crew over. However, that didn't stop KO and Joe from bringing in the Viking Raiders to even the odds. Too often, babyfaces are shown as struggling with the concept of recruiting help when needed. Tonight's opening showdown helped include 8 wrestlers in an exciting segment and escalate the war between Owens and his forces versus those of Rollins. Number 2, an exciting return. Now, we'll always admit when we're wrong, and we have to give the devil his dues, as Rey's losing efforts to Andrade seems to have led to a good way for Carrillo to return after his storyline injury at Andrade's hands and start his quest for revenge. For some time, there'd seemed to be no rhyme or reason to Rey's continued jobbing to Andrade, but if the WWE uses the losses to Andrade to build a current United States champion up, it could build Humberto Carrillo up if and when he defeats Andrade for the belt. Number 3, RAWLEY'S not running. Current 24/7 champion Mojo Rawley's new policy of not running from his challenges could liven up the title and his career. Okay, it's a little too early to tell, but the storyline has potential. Number 4, using the roster. The WWE did a good job showcasing the stars of the Red brand tonight, with various superstars wrestling, some appearing in backstage skits, and others making comedy appearances such as the Street Profits. Whatever their role, it was good to see them on air rather than off screen, while other stars hogged the show. With 3 hours of programming, Raw has plenty of time to utilize more superstars than it normally does. And number 5, no cliché ending. Whilst Raw ended with a mixed tag team match, we're kinda glad it still didn't end with the cliché of wrestlers duking it out and throwing some jobbers over the top rope to indicate, hey, the Rumble is here this weekend. Actually, who knows, WWE might save that segment for SmackDown. But that was the good. What about the bad as number 1, showcasing your weaknesses. The Lana Lashley and Rusev storyline has been good, but last night's tag match showed the program's biggest weaknesses, the matches. Lana, never known for her in-ring ability, contributed nothing to the mixed tag match, and it was a lousy way to end Raw. While their segments are main event worthy, such as the wedding from 2 weeks back, the WWE shouldn't put their matches on last. Showcase your strengths, not your weaknesses. Number 2, SOS. Raw was a strong show, but it did fall back on the meaningless filler, aka SOS, same old squashes. If the fans don't know Aleister Black is a tough guy by now, the WWE isn't doing their job right. And number 3, Matt Hardy deserves better. A lot better. It's a shame that this is how WWE wants to book presumably Matt Hardy's last run in the company. Last night's episode saw Rowan absolutely destroy Hardy in relatively easy fashion. Now, WWE could have had Hardy as one of Raw's top stars as the broken one, but ironically it's now WWE who has broken him. But that was the good. What about the downright ugly? A meaningless reign and a meaningless win. It's official, the Viking Raiders Raw Tag Team Championship reign was meaningless. If you don't believe us, let's look at why. Eric and Ivar won the titles from Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode before wrestling squash matches for weeks. Along the way, the Viking Raiders lost to the OC in the World Cup at Crown Jewel, then experienced a huge push as they defeated the Street Profits and the OC. This push of course seems to have been just made to make the Raiders look strong to put over the unlikely team of Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy over. What's baffling about this is that Rollins and Murphy are a new team with 0 experience. Add in the fact that Rollins' other disciples, the AOP, are supposed to be the group's tag team, and you have booking that makes 0 sense. Why not put the tag team titles on the actual tag team in the faction? But despite the ugliness, Raw was a pretty good show. While SmackDown has been the superior show thanks to several weeks of strong episodes, last night's Raw shows the Red Brand can keep up if it wants to. The showdown between Brock Lesnar and Ricochet was admittedly predictable, but it was a good way to put over his bravery and stupidity by standing up to Lesnar. The WWE forwarded all the matches it needed to going into the Royal Rumble and threw out some hints such as Charlotte challenging Becky Lynch down the road. But that was the good, the bad and the downright ugly. Let's move on to the news, as our first story looks at an ex-WWE writer revealing bullying in the company. Former WWE writer Jensen Karp had some interesting remarks about life in the WWE, including bullying he experienced while he worked there. Karp recently appeared on the Swing and Misses show recalling, "Well, I didn't deal with it. I left WWE. I've been pretty vocal about Bradshaw, JBL, and I haven't hid it on Twitter. I think he was, in the grand scheme of things, nice to me compared to other people. But calling me shithead for 6 months and not wanting to learn my real name is so degrading." The former WWE writer also revealed that Vince McMahon would actually throw almonds at people who fell asleep on Vinnie Mac's private jet. Karp's experience sounds pretty bad, and apparently bad enough where it's affected his performance at work. He mentioned, "At a certain point you're like, you know I have to be creative for this show. The more you make me feel bad, it makes it bad content. So you're affecting the show." If Karp's experience reflects that of other writers, it could explain why WWE Creative does so poorly. Next up, some news on WWE returns. Fightful.com's Patreon section recently announced that Lars Sullivan, who has been out with an injury since June 2019, may be back sooner than the 1-year recovery time previously mentioned by the WWE. The site notes, WWE has had him marked down to miss a full year, but he was of the belief he'd be back sooner, having recovered from a knee injury prior. One of the biggest questions being asked is whether WWE will incorporate Sullivan's recent past that's been disclosed. Fightful Select also discussed EC3, who's been on the shelf since suffering a concussion. We're told after a slow start, EC3 is progressing well after sustaining a concussion months ago. EC3 is another talented star who could offer a lot to the WWE, but appears to be on Mr. McMahon's hit list, hence the complete burial. Another superstar fans are asking about is Jeff Hardy, who is dealing with his DUI case. The case is scheduled for court on 4th April, and if the WWE continues to keep him off television until it's resolved, don't count on seeing him at WrestleMania. Next up, some news on WWE trademarks. Several wrestling sites, including Wrestling Inc., are reporting that WWE has filed for more trademarks, including Trish Stratus, Epico, Everrise, Chase Parker, and Matt Martell. Everrise is the new tag team name used for the former 3.0, made up of Martell and Parker. They previously used ring names Shane Matthews and Scott Parker. No updates on whether the WWE is attempting to block any of AEW's recent trademark filings for former WCW pay-per-view names. Next up, Psychosis 2 explains why he pimp-slapped Conan. The man who portrays Psychosis 2, the luchador who took the mantle from the original Psychosis with his blessing, recently spoke about why he slapped Conan. Apparently Conan has been supporting his friend to use the name Psychosis, despite Psychosis No. 2's prior claim to it. Psychosis appeared for an interview with the YouTube channel President XL, explaining that what it is that Nicho is a very good friend of his, and he, Conan, boasts that he's the only Psychosis, that he can do what he pleases and take the character to all these shows and promoters. Conan told me to fix it however I could. I warned him on October about it. The interview, translated by R. Rodriguez at the site Microman Fever, suggests Psychosis 2 was finally able to confront Conan at the Impact show in Mexico City, and that Psychosis says Conan had no idea what he was talking about, so Psychosis slapped him so he would remember. He was hoping for a fight. He wanted Conan to uphold his words with actions. I'm 52, he is 52, he is not an old man. If he's in his current state from all the vices he partakes in, that's not my problem. If I was a bad, greedy person, I would have killed him with my blows, but I'm not like that. I'm not going to hurt someone that didn't even defend themselves. According to the interview, Psychosis 2 is demanding that Kona not promote Nicho as Psychosis or have him booked as such. And our final story of today, Vince McMahon receives huge backlash over a tweet. Vince McMahon tweeted a video honoring Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. with the simple caption, "My hero." However, some people called the tweet hypocritical in their eyes for perceived questionable booking towards minorities. One user replied, "Booked Sasha as a choke artist, buried Booker T at Mania 19 with a racist storyline, Titus O'Neil does nothing despite having the type of body Vince loves, I wonder why, took 11 years to put the world title on Kofi, only to book him as a mid-carder and have him get embarrassed." Some others replied with simple gifs, while others simply laughed at this clip.
What's good in the hood? Just hold it down, trying to take care of business. Keep it up, I'm a nigga.
But there you have it guys, the good, the bad and the downright ugly from the 20th January edition of Raw, as well as the wildest news stories and rumors you need to know. What did you guys think of the go home episode of Raw? Did it hype the Rumble well enough? Let us know in the comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.